Hi, welcome to Video Project Team Edward. I'm Ryan.
I'm Erica.
And behind the camera is Max. So first things first, I'm going to take you through our code here. And this is our .m file that we have created along with a .fig file to run the GUI. Through the beginning, we have which sets up the GUI and creates the variables and goes through it. So as we run it, this will load all of our code will load into the .fig file and then take it from there. So let's run it. So as you can see here, we have our GUI displayed with our video here, our control buttons here: play, stop, load, step forward, step back. The video info that would display after loading it, our extras of our RGB histogram, our RGB sliders, which changes those values, and our contrast slider, which changes the contrast value of the video. So first, let me take you through the load function. So here, when we click this button, it will run through our code down to our callbacks. So through our load callback function here, it is going to it's going to allow access files on our computer. So if we go back to our GUI and hit load, it will run through here and access the files that on our computer. We then select an MP4 and open it. It will then load and display the picture. It'll also display the RGB histogram and set all the RGB values in contrast to the original video. So in our code, as you can see here, this right here will display the properties in our video. But before that, we'll have this gets our video information. This determines how long our video will take. This determines the width and height of our video needed to display it, and this determines the frame rate at which the video is playing. From here, we can set all of these values so that it is displayed on the video info here. The name of the video, the resolution, the 320 by 240, its frame rate, 30 frames per second, and its duration, 4.7 seconds. After it has displayed the information, it will then run through the RGB values of the video and set it to its initial values, then initial contrast, and then also run through the RGB histogram and display those values. Next, Max is going to teach you what happens when you hit the play, stop, step forward, and step back functions.
So the loop to actually play the video is located in the callback for the play and pause button. So the way it works is that we have here a flowchart which demonstrates exactly how it goes through the process of displaying the video in the histogram. It starts, you have the GUI, which waits user input. The video is loaded and it waits for the user to press play. Once the user presses play, first of all it reads the frame of the video at the current time, and then it takes that frame, which is a matrix, which is a three-dimensional matrix which includes for every pixel 3 RGB values. So it goes through this, and then once it reads that frame, it takes that frame, stores it into a variable, and that variable will be modified through the color slider modifiers and the contrast modifier. This modifies the colors and the contrast of the image, so we can then display onto the histogram and onto the actual frame of the video. And after this, it will update the video on the histogram, so it just doesn't give you one single still picture. Then it checks if it has an extra frame to load. If it's the end of the video, it will stop the video. If it is not the end of the video, it will go back into this loop. While all during this time, it still awaits the GUI input. So if the user decides to press pause, it will pause the video. And the frame is updated, the frame and histogram are updated every single time a button is pressed. So Erica can explain to us the algorithms that are used for the color slider and contrast.
Okay, for the color slider, it will read the frame in the video and the RGB values in it, and to adjust the sliders, you'll move them. It goes from 0 to 1. And if you move the slider, it adjusts the value at that frame. And the contrast function is an exponential function which redistributes the RGB values from 0 to 250, which will either increase or decrease the contrast of the video.
So I'm going to demonstrate the basics of the use of the GUI right here. So right here we have loaded the video, and we have a few buttons right here. We have play, stop, load, step forward, and step back. When we play the video, it plays the video. Play video turns to a pause button, which you can pause and play at your own convenience. If ever you decide to stop the video, it will play back from the beginning. Once you've paused the video, or if you play and step and click on another button, it automatically pauses. You can do a step back to step back exactly 1 frame, or step forward to step forward exactly 1 frame, and the histogram and video frames will update automatically. You can also slide forward to the video or backward to the video at your own convenience in case you want to. And Erica will demonstrate to you the extras.
So each of the extras have to exist in the callback functions. So here, let's say we have the histogram that shows exactly the RGB values of the video as it's paused here. And here, if we can just move the color sliders, you watch the histogram and red values go up, and then green ones, blue, and stop. Play again, and then you could just move the contrast, makes it darker, makes it less contrast.
So I'm going to do a general rundown of the code right here. I'm going to stop at the play pause button, which is the most important callback. Once you've press the button, it will change the state of the video to the opposite state. If it's paused, it'll be in a play state. If it's playing, it'll be in a pause state, which is what it does here. It also updates the string of the buttons to change the name of the button from play to pause. The video playing loop is a while loop, which runs if the video still has a frame and if the state of the video is playing. And so it's fairly simple. It stores the frame of the video into a variable vid frame, which is then altered by the RGB values of the RGB sliders, and then it's altered by the contrast algorithm, and then it is displayed on the axes of the video. Additionally, the histogram is updated. The histogram takes the data of the video, clears the axes, and then plots the histogram. The stop button callback is also fairly simple. It changes the state of the video to a stop, and it basically takes the current time, sets it back to 0, so the video will play from the beginning if played again. Then you have the step forward and step backward buttons, which are essentially the same, except the step forward steps forward and the step backward steps backward. Otherwise, the code is the exact same. If pressed, it automatically sets the video to pause. To step forward, it checks first if it has a frame to step forward to, and then it steps forward by just reading the next frame. And same thing, it has to update it has to go through the RGB modification values, the contrast, and displaying it, and additionally updating the histogram. The histogram is updated every single time a button is pressed, and the step back button is the same, except that it goes back the current time is subtracted by 2 divided by the frame rate in order to undo the fact that get frame goes forward 1 frame, and same thing, updates the RGB, contrast, and histogram.
For these functions, so you have the RGB values color sliders here, and it basically reads the frame, the original frame, and multiplies it by the value that is equivalent to the placement of the color slider, and that will basically be the same for the contrast. It will read the frame and then adjust according to where the color slider is, and then both of those will be adjusted and adjust the histogram as the color sliders move. And all these functions will exist in all the callback functions, because depending on what button is pressed, everything has to be updated.
So this is the video slider callback function. For here, this is for the slider, which has to be updated constantly as the video is playing, which is done through here and here. So when the video is paused, though, the user can change the video slider through wherever they want, and this will then update the video and change the video, and then display at the current time that video is at. This also then has to update the RGB values, the contrast, and the histogram at the same time, which is done through here, here, and here.